Hey, fellow babies. Welcome back to Pachter Factor. If you're watching us on Patreon, we appreciate your patronage. SIFTD can only survive if we can keep Shane in chips. You guys have to keep restacking his chips because he's out there gambling every week. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you for being fans. We ask one of two things from you if you're on YouTube. One, if you can remember and you're tech savvy, take a minute, look at the instructions on the YouTube description, go to Twitch and link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account. If you're a Prime member, you will become a Twitch Prime member and then subscribe to the SIFTD channel. If you do all that, it's free. I promise you, it costs you nothing. Shane will get $250. So if you can do that, you can keep us afloat, and Shane can afford to keep making these shows. If you can't be bothered with any of that because you're just too dumb to figure out how to do it, I appreciate my dumb fans too, so that's okay. If you're technologically challenged, just try to follow us on Twitter, at Michael Pachter, at Dinfire is Shane, at SIFTD Games, and we will continue to produce these things even for free for you guys. Moving on, our first question this week from SIFTD, from Sean Finn. Do you think any of the games shown at E3 2018 are next-gen exclusive? If so, which ones? Great question. Halo. I kind of think, so here's the thing. They announced Halo. They didn't give a date, right? So we don't know when Halo's coming. One would think it's a 19 release because it's pretty clear it's not coming out this holiday. It's possible it's 20. If Halo is coming out in 19, it might tell you that the next Xbox is coming out in 19. It's possible that Halo's going to do a GTA and launch on current gen and then a year later on next gen, and that might actually be a smart strategy. And so I could see EA kind of, emulating what Take-Two did, what Rockstar did with GTA 5, which launched right before the next gen consoles came out and then a year later came out on next gen. Halo could straddle that. Zelda Breath of the Wild was kind of a current gen, next gen title, although nobody had a Wii U. But I think that there's some merit to that kind of a straddle. But Halo is the one title that they have that's big enough that I think it could be next gen exclusive. Although remember, we also heard about the next Gears, so it's entirely possible both of those are next gen exclusives. So Microsoft, yes. Sony, Death Stranding probably isn't coming out until 2021 or 2 or 3. So sure, that's a next gen. I don't think anything we saw other than the Microsoft games in Death Stranding. That Sony press conference, I found it, because there was no speaking, I just found it really hard to follow. It's like if you, a lot of information, and they were on, it was all on screen, so nobody said, hey, I like the old days when Andy House goes, and it's confirmed, it's coming out March 22nd. You'd hear it as opposed to some screen flash, and if you weren't writing it down, I gotta say, I was so pissed about standing. I didn't live tweet. I completely forgot about Twitter because I was just like, I thought we were gonna get attacked in The Last of Us barn. I was like, I thought zombies were going to come in and attack us, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm not going to have my phone out in a big crowd. So I stopped tweeting. We got a question this week from YouTube from Michael Ivanov. The Nintendo Direct approach seems more viable because it's more consistent than massive press conferences and it leaves no room for errors. God, are you a nice person? Because I am exactly on the other side of that fence from you. Square Enix duplicated Nintendo's approach at E3 2018. Will the actual show become more irrelevant in the coming years if more publishers follow suit? Well, I'll answer the question. Yeah, the show will be completely irrelevant if every publisher does that. And by the way, the Nintendo Direct approach is idiotic, as is Square Enix's approach. So, God. And Sony doing the same thing with their press conference. No one's going to talk. We're just going to show you game trailers. You're right. If all we get is a freaking video and we just watch, why do we need to be anywhere? Idiots. Complete fools. All of them. No, you don't do that. You have an opportunity to actually perform on stage in front of a worldwide audience. Do it. People like seeing the developers. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting at the Sony event in one of the few times we were allowed to sit. I was sitting in the Sony event after the Last of Us video. So when we got the big, what would you call it, collage of videos. And I was sitting behind Evan Wells and Neil Druckmann, and I'm like, my God, these guys are making The Last of Us, and they're sitting in front of me. They're not on stage going, this is our baby, we're so proud, we put blood, sweat, and tears in this, we love this game, you will too. I want to see that. You should want to see that. It makes it personal, it makes you care. Joseph Ferris on stage, with A Way Out, fist pumping, how great this game's going to be, makes me want to play it. Seeing a video is like no different than watching a video trailer in a movie theater. Who cares? Every movie looks great in a video. When you get the passionate creator up there telling you how he poured his soul into it, you love the concept. So no, I think the Nintendo Direct approach is idiotic, all caps. I'm going to say this Trump-like. Idiotic, stupid. They can do it during the year to kind of feed information. That's fine. That's nice. But during E3, idiotic. Take advantage. The whole world is watching E3. Exploit that fact. Sony fucked up. It was a mistake. They think they were clever. They blew it. That was a bad press conference. Great content, bad press conference. There's nothing to report except, hey, I saw a video. Who cares? Much more fun when Norman Reedus is on stage, Lindsay Wagner on stage, Mads Mikkelsen on stage. Bring those guys up and have them talk about how cool it is to work with Kojima. That would have been a freaking awesome event. But instead, no, we showed you a video. Watch that 6 months later, who cares? It's so exciting when you're there and it's really happening. Our next question for Patreon, Yakov Verch. Hey, Pac, there are more rumors circulating about a Google gaming console. Do you think there's room for a fourth console on the market? Assuming it will run on Android, do you think it's feasible for game makers, publishers to port games to another operating system? If it's a game streaming console, which is also rumored, do you think it can succeed where others failed when considering data caps and bandwidth? Look, I'd say rumors aside, it is a certainty that Google, Apple, and Amazon are getting into the games business. And Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo will continue in the games business. So the premise, that we need a console might be right, might not. As you pointed out, streaming is a possibility. If we can stream, we don't need a Google console. You can stream to your freaking phone and play on your phone. If you can stream to your smart TV. You don't need a device. The TV will work. You can stream to a Fire TV stick or a Google Chrome stick. But you don't need a special console if we're going to stream. So the answer is all of the above. You're going to stream some stuff. I think multiplayer gaming probably works a little better if you download the full client at each location and you got rendering real time at both locations. So you have a CPU, GPU at both locations, in which case you need a console. The console doesn't have to look like a console. It can look like a tablet. It can look like a Fire TV box. It can look like a Google Home. So I don't know what it's going to look like. My guess is, as I said, all of the above. We're going to do both. And you're going to get devices from Apple, Amazon, and Google that will play games. You're going to get a device, obviously, from Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo that will play games. You also could buy your device from Dell, and maybe it'll play a game. From Samsung, and maybe it'll play a game, which could be your TV. I don't know. What I think is going to happen is consumers are going to have more choices to play games. And will a game play better on a dedicated console? Yes. Do PC games play better on $2,000 PCs than they do on $200 PCs? Yes. So depending on your hardware, you get a more optimized experience for sure. But there's going to be dumbed down hardware from Google, Apple, and Amazon. They may call it a console, they may call it a HomePod, they may call it Home, they may call it Fire TV. I don't know what they're going to call it, but they're going to all be in that business. So yes, it's coming. And will it be viable? I don't think in the scheme of Google profitability, consoles will even be a line item. It won't even be, it'll be a rounding error. nobody cares. In the context of Apple profitability, Amazon profitability, nobody cares. These guys aren't getting into the business to make money on hardware. They're getting in the business to own the customer, to own software. In Google's case, probably to advertise to you, to know more, have more data on what you're doing and how they can, optimize their core business, which is advertising. Apple, they want to own the whole entertainment spectrum. They want to sell you music, movies, television shows, games. Amazon wants to sell you books, music, movies, games. So, and then Microsoft obviously wants your online multiplayer. Amazon Web Services, they can do online multiplayer, so can Google. So all these guys are looking to exploit the consumer, get more activity on their particular service, either use that information for more advertising or sell you more stuff, which would be Amazon, or just make money on the online service, which would be Apple and Google and Amazon and Microsoft. So coming for sure. Yes, Google's going to be in the business. Is the home console the answer? I don't know. I don't think it matters. If you're somebody who doesn't have a home console, never will get one, but you have a smart TV, you're perfectly happy streaming games. And if the multiplayer isn't as good as a console, then get a console. That's your choice. So I think that the point is consumers get more choice. So I think this is actually pretty cool. From Patreon, Mikey Novak. So Amy Hennig's departure from EA and the shelving of her Star Wars game means that she will not have a completed project since 2011. Do you think this will significantly impact EA? Do you have a theory on what happened? Okay, so I saw Amy. So in January, they closed Visceral. EA closed Visceral. EA had their earnings call, I think, around January 31st. I got the CFO on the call, who is now COO, Blake, and I said, what happened to Amy Hennig? She's part of Visceral. Did she leave as well? She shut down. And his answer was, we're still working on that. We haven't resolved her employment status. And let me be fair, EA loves her. They wanted to retain her. So, and again, what do you think happened? Visceral was one of the older studios at EA. When Condrey and Schofield left to form Sledgehammer, which was like 2010 or 11, and they started their studio, and they poached 30 or 40 people, because who else were they going to hire? They hired the guys that they knew that were good, and Sledgehammer turned into a great studio, but Visceral lost some talent. So here's Visceral. They lose two of the guys who ran the studio, 20 or 30 good people who worked there. Their talent was compromised. They are in a much higher cost area. Redwood Shores is actually between San Francisco and Silicon Valley, higher compensation there than anywhere. So it was EA's most expensive studio. And my estimate is 2 times at least more expensive than a Canadian studio, maybe 3, like really high cost. And not as talented as it had been in the past. And they made a couple of good Dead Space games, but then it kind of started to fall off. They made Battlefield Hardline, which wasn't great. It was, fair, but it was like 70, like 75 review score or something. And honestly, I think they started working on a Star Wars game, and Amy aside, the game wasn't that great. So they shut down the studio mostly because it was high cost. And in California, it's hard to fire people, to just say, hey, you suck, we're paying you too much, we fire you, but you can eliminate their job. So the way around all these laws, if you decide this is just too expensive and we, EA, don't want to spend the money on this studio, is shut the studio down completely. Eliminate everybody's jobs. You're allowed to do that. That's not discriminatory. So EA is able to shift expensive development work to Vancouver and to Montreal, which are less expensive because there's Canadian subsidies for that. Salaries are probably, I think Vancouver's pretty expensive, but still cheaper than Redwood Shores. And so they did that. But Amy, who they brought in specifically to write the game, they valued her and they wanted her. So I asked them around January 31st and they said, we're still working it out. I saw Amy at DICE, not Night to Unite. Well, I saw her at Night to Unite as well. Anyway, those were like back to back in late February. And I asked her point blank, are you still working there? And she goes, no. And she said it was friendly, everybody was treated her with utmost respect, and she said it was my choice not to stay. So my bias is, and again, I don't know her personal situation. I think she lived in LA before. I think she's an LA person. I know she moved up to the Bay Area to work on this game. I have a feeling when they eliminated the Bay Area studio they told her, well, please come and stay working for us because we value you, you're great, we'll pay you whatever. But you got to be in Montreal or Vancouver. And I think she decided to move back to LA. And I'm not sure if she's in LA or San Francisco right now, but she's a California person. I'm a California person, so I totally get this. I don't want to live in Vancouver or Montreal either. They're great to visit, but no thank you. So I think that was that. I don't think it was EA being mean to her at all. They flat out told me they worked hard to save her. She flat out told me they treated her very well and she had no bones to pick with them at all, respect of their decision. But I knew this in February. So I think the weird thing is the story broke in like June or July. So I was actually more surprised that you guys are surprised that Amy was let go. She wasn't let go. I'm certain that EA paid her whatever they were supposed to pay her. I'm sure she's fine financially. She's super talented. She's now starting her own little games thing. She'll attract good talent. Somebody will exploit her skills. She will make another game. The 2011 comment, I guess that's right. She worked on Uncharted 4. She just didn't finish it because they gave the tribute to her at the end and the credits. So I mean, I'm sure she had something to do with it. She's pretty talented. So I think that's what happened. Again, I don't think it's any reflection on Visceral other than they were expensive, and if your work is average and your pay is above average, then they have to think about being able to pay somebody less to do the same job. Most publishers have studios all over the world, and the truth is, if you're in a relatively low-cost place like Austin, you can pull it off. That's it for this week's Pachter Factor. Thank you for joining us. A reminder, if you are watching on Patreon, thank you for your patronage. Shane thanks you. If you are watching on YouTube, we ask a favor, please. Go to twitch.tv and link Twitch to your Amazon Prime account and then subscribe to the SIFTD channel. And Twitch will pay Shane $2.50 a month and it costs you nothing. It's part of your Prime membership. So if you have a minute, and literally it should take you about 60 seconds, and you're tech savvy enough to actually type in twitch.tv on your browser and then link it, you're doing us a huge favor. Please do it. If you aren't tech savvy and you need to have somebody come in and help you to find the Pachter Factor on YouTube, we understand. I also had that person help you follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, follow Shane at Dinfire, follow SIFTD at SIFTD Games, so at least we get some Twitter followers and we feel a little better about ourselves. And by the way, Sony bad, Nintendo worse. Oh, we did a Nintendo Direct. Why the hell have E3? Why be there? What's the point? I'm pretty good at marketing myself though, and notice how I'm doing it? I'm talking to you. I could show you a video of my notes and you could read them yourself. Boy, that's fun. God, please. The highlight of the Sony event for me was the hot dogs were really good. They were so good.